nderuar, mirëmbrëma dhe mirë se vini në Jeta në Kosovë. Sonte do të mund të ndiqni një intervistë me Andrew Russell, shefin e UNDP-s në Kosovë, apo programin e Kombeve të Bashkuara për Zhvillim. Mes tjera që kemi pyet zotnin Russell se pse duhet taksa paguesi kosovar, ju qytetarët, m'ia pagu UNDP-s 2 milion euro çdo vit për të bërë programe për zhvillim. Pse s'po mundet qeveria e Kosovës me i kry këto programe vetë? Si mund të rritet punësimi i sektorëve të shoqërisë që mas pakti po arrin të punësohen e që janë të rinjtë edhe gratë? Mr. Russell, thank you for coming to Jeta in Kosovo. You run the UNDP office in Kosovo. Can you please tell me how long do we need to have UNDP in Kosovo? Have we grown out of it or not?
Well, first of all, thank you for finally inviting me here. I've been here for over 3.5 years, and I was beginning to think you were afraid of me, but I'm glad that you finally have me here.
You had to do something worthwhile to come here. You have, for 3.5 years now, done something that we can talk about.
Good. Yeah, why? Well, let's think about the three things that UNDP supports. Together with other UN agencies, we're helping to try and make government and your public services work more efficiently, more transparently, and with less corruption. We're helping Kosovars to generate jobs, and we're trying to at least raise awareness and hopefully increase investment and attention on the fact that the environment is killing you. So these are, from a global perspective, are things that UNDP work with globally. But there are, I think, 3 issues that are particularly important to Kosovo. The second point I would make is that in these 3 areas, we actually we don't work so much with international donors to Kosovo anymore as a technical agency. We actually work increasingly with Kosovo taxpayer money. And 20%, around 2 million a year, goes towards these programs. So the Kosovo institutions that we work with actually invest in our work and see the value in our work. The third thing is that this EU accession process, which deals with some of those issues, but other issues as well, it's going to take time, but it's going to take a hell of a lot longer time if agencies like UNDP aren't there to really bring in experiences from the SAA and other European experiences where we've been able to help. And the most recent example is Croatia. We brought in a lot of Croatian expertise to help speed up the process of EU accession. So these are, I could give you a few more reasons, but that's why we shouldn't pack up yet.
Let's stop with something interesting you just said, and I find that very good that you started off with telling our audience that actually the taxpayers' money pays into UNDP in order to do projects about Kosovo. So this is a bit, the obvious question, which might be a bit straightforward for you, would be, why is it more efficient and sustainable for Kosovo government, who we pay to run things, to pay you to manage our projects? How come it is more efficient to do that?
Well, I would say it's efficient and effective as well. Why? Because most governments around the world aren't experts in institutional development or capacity development. Developing the skills and the abilities to, for example, generate jobs or reduce environmental impacts on health. So what we do is project work. And so what we can do that ministries or other departments or municipalities have a hard time doing is that we can work really quickly to design and implement projects that are sustainable over time and that develop the skills so that the Kosovars can continue doing this.
Some cynics would say that this is just Kosovo government accepting that they can't trust themselves to do projects properly, or they think they're too corrupt to do projects properly. That's why they pay you 2 million a year.
I would have to say that in some contexts around the world, that's probably true. I think the Kosovo authorities don't look at it that way. I think
17 years after the war, we don't have capacities after so much donor funds having been put in building our capacities?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right in the sense that I don't think there's been enough of this kind of focus. I think there's been a lot of bing bang projects that, like, boom, we have to spend a lot of money on this to rebuild this or to construct this or whatever, and there hasn't been enough attention to the more detail, and it's not very sexy work that we do. But, you know, sitting down a bunch of Croatian experts who worked on a certain aspect of the European Union accession process with their counterparts in Kosovo is not sexy stuff, and people don't like to invest in that. But that's what we have to invest in.
UNDP, who sits in New York, is an expert in EU accession.
Yeah, because we're everywhere. All of the you know, basically every single one of the 2004 member states that came in like 13 years ago.
Isn't it normal for EU office in Kosovo to be doing this rather than UNDP?
They play a different role. In a sense, they're on the other side of the table. And this is one of the misconceptions around often the UN. Particularly a place like Kosovo, because another part of the UN, UNDP, used to run this place, right? But the fact is that the UN Development Program, UN Women, UNICEF, whatever, we actually sit on the other side of the table. We sit with the Kosovo authorities.
I know you're mentioning EU accession, but actually I would disagree that there is what you say unsexy projects that you're doing, because it's the bread and butter stuff that our audience cares about, the employment. You are working with Ministry of Interior to provide training for people who left Kosovo last year, who tried to immigrate to Germany.
2 years ago, but yeah.
You're providing vocational training?
Yes.
Tell me about that. How many people have you employed through that project?
Well, you know, I have to say that that we're really at the early stages of this project. What I can tell you is that on average, but this is not just the programs for the returnees, these people who are getting on the buses and trying to make it through Serbia and whatever way that they can. Yeah. I mean, we used to average a few hundred jobs for that audience, but also, yeah, we also target youth and we target women as well. We used to average a few hundred jobs a year. We remember that there was tens of thousands of people. Yeah. Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to help every single one of them get a job. Right now, we need to scale up this work. We're averaging a little over 1,000 jobs a year.
But you remember, the other side of that debate was that people were leaving, people who had jobs were leaving. They were largely leaving because they've told us through our research, because of the lack of opportunities. They didn't feel their children would get good education, good health here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are you really addressing the problem by finding them some low-skilled job?
Well, hopefully not all of these jobs are low skills, and hopefully they're ones that they're passionate about. Because the only way that people are going to stay in Kosovo is, of course, yes, they need to have a job, but they also need to have some kind of sense that their their children, that the young people of Kosovo can construct something, can build something more positive, and maybe they are doing something that they don't exactly, I mean, ideally, as parents, what do we want? We want to make sure that our kids have access to good education, good health care, and that they have a sense of that they can do something more exciting and better than what we were able to do. Whether they make more money or not doesn't really matter. And
so in your report, let's get on talking about youth employment. In your report, youth and employment, especially for the young and women, because your report says these are two sectors in Kosovo which are getting less opportunities than others. More than an interesting statistic from the report you've done is that more than 65% of unemployed women stated in your service that they would not be able to start working in the next 2 weeks even if they got a job because of personal or family responsibilities. Can you explain this? Why do you think this happens?
Well, you could ask my sisters, in the sense that this is not just a Kosovo phenomena, right? I grew up, I'm in my 50s, and my sisters still, resent the fact that even as a Canadian, but son of a British and an American couple, I was the favored one, I got more opportunities. I got more encouragement from my parents than my sisters did. They were pleasantly surprised that my sisters went on and worked. This happens around the world. We, in a sense, and then what my sisters have to deal with is they wake up one morning and they think to themselves, you know, God damn it, you know, I have been limiting myself because of what my family or what my community, trying to live up to the expectations of my community. So one of the things that we see in Kosovo, but also around the world, is that often, you know, women themselves are holding themselves back because they don't, you know, women like to please their families. They like to please their parents. They like to, and one of the things I would love to do more, and so would Flora Machula, my partner in crime from UN Women, we want to work more on women's...
She was an activist on women's, long before UN came, on women's rights, long before UN came.
Exactly. Yeah. And she's a great asset to us as a team. And one of the things that she and I talk about a lot is that the importance of engaging with young women as early as possible to start to build that sense of confidence and the idea that yeah, you know, darn it, they can, you know, they can be scientists, they can do anything that they want.
Let me be blunt about why I think this statistic is right, and I would translate it to the fact
of
that
course it's right, it's one of ours.
Society doesn't want the women to work. This is what it is. So there's a lot of unemployment on women, but they don't sign up for asking for work either. Right. So society, I would say, doesn't want them to work. Does your work, development work in the world, prove that that mothers who don't work are better than those who work? Can we just be blunt about this? What does the statistics in the world say about women staying home to care for their families? Do they build healthier children by the fact that women is at home?
There's so, I mean, this is like climate change. It's like, you know, there are so many studies out there now that demonstrate that, you know, investing in women's participation in the workforce leads to healthier children. It leads to better educated children. It leads to increases in family income. It has a significantly higher proportional contribution to overall gross domestic product.
What would you say to those families who think that a woman at home is what the child needs, the mother at home is what they need, the child needs to be next to the mother? What would you say to the families who think that the mother needs to take care of the children as a priority rather than be at work?
I would say that we live in the 21st century now.
Meaning? What does it mean for the child? The child should expect less care, less love from the mother. What would this mean for the children?
Meaning that there are a lot of challenges for anyone raising a child today. I'm not saying that it's easy, but I also think that the complexity of the world that children grow up in today, they need their fathers more than ever. They need their teachers more than ever. They need, they need a community, a supportive community, and it shouldn't all rest on the burden. The burden of raising a child shouldn't rest entirely on a mother. And the fact is that if a mother feels good about her life, if she feels that she is producing, I mean, just look at this, if she's, maybe not every, 24 hours a day, but if she is contributing to the income of the family, if she's contributing to the welfare of the family, if she's, not just, doing the dishes while dad is sitting and smoking a cigarette and having a coffee with his friends, she will be a happier person, and it will be a better environment for those children to grow up in.
The other myth that your research seems to contradict is the fact that the more diplomas you have in Kosovo, you get a job. You are more likely to get a job. Now, your statistics prove that actually without a university diploma and masters, only with a vocational education and training, you have a higher labor force participation, a higher chance to get a job, is the way I understand it, rather than if you got a diploma. Do I understand this correctly?
Yeah, and this is not just Kosovo. I mean, this is a phenomena globally. We have a really big problem in the sense that we have a lot of issues now, even after the financial crisis, with income increases without the proportional increase in jobs. And why? Because machines, are in a sense taking over. I mean, there are a lot of things Even you know, what would you call white collar work? You know, societies don't need, you know, necessarily as many lawyers. They don't need as well. Yes, I think they do need probably more doctors here in Kosovo. Doctors who get good training and stay here, and who are not corrupt. But what I'm trying to say is that even around the world, there is a movement now, and it's called the Makers Movement. And Kosovo is actually demonstrating...
What does this movement stand for, the Makers Movement?
The people who make stuff.
Okay, okay.
The world still needs good, you know, good stuff. We need to make things, and we can make things without having a master's or a PhD. We can, you know, we can make software programs. We can, you know, we can produce, you know, amazing products with the agricultural.
What would you
produce.
say to a young person who is served by the worst education system in Europe, because we have been told that by PISA results? How will that person learn to make great stuff with this education system and these archaic teachers who don't seem to have the motivation to teach them right?
Well, I mean, I could probably spend the rest of the time listing some of the self-organized groups of young people that we work with. This is the answer. Don't wait.
How do they learn, these self-organized people?
Well, I think that first of all, you know, organizations like ours who are global in nature. I'll just give you one quick example. We have a partnership with Slovakia that's all about opening up data, and it's run by a Kosovar sitting in Istanbul. And what we do is by engaging with young people, we help to get them exposed to other young people who are doing exactly the same thing, you know, in other parts of the Balkans and other parts of the region.
How does a young person in Kosovo who has to go to this school learn things that he needs and she needs, which are not being taught at school?
The other thing that we've seen in other contexts that I would love to do a lot more on, but again, it's hard to get financial support for these things. It's not sexy, and ultimately sometimes some of these groups are seen as being, well, you know this better than anybody else, a threat to vested interests in certain, you know, in this case we're talking about the school system. So the other day, I won't mention the name of the organization, but they've only been around for a few months, and they're already, you know, have certain education authorities somewhat terrified because they're looking at opening up data. Now, how are they learning how to do this? They're doing it by networking. They're doing it by saying, look, not all of us can go and get the kind of training and the exposure somewhere else. So if we're sitting here in our little bubble of our little organization of 12 people, this is just a drop on the bucket. Kosovo is at a point now where, on issues, for example, related to, you know, youth empowerment, education, linked to employment, linked to creating spaces for engagement, political space, social spaces, cultural spaces, you name it. Nobody's going to give that space to them. They have to demand that space. And if they're sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, what can I do?" And I've had Kosovar young people say this to me, "What can I do? Our politicians have let us down. Our institutions have let us down. International organizations have let us down." And I'm looking at them and going, well, what in the world are you waiting for? The only thing that has ever produced, you know, systemic, sustainable, positive change is if people like you get annoyed enough that you start doing something about it. So it's about, you know, empowerment is about taking power, not about waiting for somebody to give it to you. The second thing is networking and partnering.
Let me translate that in
Am I talking
language.
in jargon?
No.
Sorry.
When translating doing something, are you talking about protesting? Are you talking about making? What exactly can they do? Let's get to the details of what you're saying. They should do something. Young people here, when they get upset, they go out and protest. I grew up with protests. So what else could they be doing apart from just getting annoyed, thinking about leaving Kosovo, or protesting? How else could they learn to improve their skills to get on to do things?
Well, I'll give you, I mean, there's so many different things that they could do. I mean, you know, I'm typical international. I showed up to the opening of a 2 or 3 day event where the kids from the University of Pristina, on their own, organized an international conference on social entrepreneurship. So what is social entrepreneurship? For example, in Dragaš, we help not young people, but some women in Dragaš, Albanian and Gorani, to use to pull together their sewing skills that they had learned from their mothers, etc., to start making clothes for schools and get contracts and things like that. So it starts with self-organized learning what other, can you sew stuff, can you use 3D printers. The kids from Bonavet, and I don't know if they're actually doing this, but last time I was talking to them in Jakova, they were, the kids from Jakova were thinking about taking the shell of a car and learning how to build an electric car, the first electric car in Kosovo. So there's so many different things that they can do. They just need to get organized and learn from each other. Great.
So let's talk now a little bit about another project which I was amazed that you have something on as UNDP. You actually have a climate change project in Kosovo. I want to talk about this because we live in the most polluted capital in Europe. We've gone through the winter with worse air than ever. People just complained a lot on this air. All the air indications that we have now are showing that it's at high risk during winter. Yeah. We live in a place where with old cars, the oldest cars in Europe come to us. Can we say that we're that poor that we can that we should be taking this environmental pollution in Kosovo? We should just accept it that this is a part of poor countries? Are we that poor?
No, of course not. I mean, to be one of the most polluted places in the world, puts you in a pretty bad category, and of course you're not that poor.
Can people be justified, people who use coal to heat their homes? Is the cheapest, what would you say to these people? Because they say, is the cheapest way to heat our homes. We have no central heating, electricity costs too much, and people use coal, the cheapest form of heating in Kosovo.
Well, I mean, the question really, when it boils down to it, is that how quickly do you want to kill your children?
What do you mean?
How quickly do you want to kill your children? That's what I mean, in the sense that every day as parents, as community members, we take decisions. And we can think about, okay, well, it costs me a little bit less, to directly burn coal, or some other, or to keep, my 40-year-old car running on the streets of Kosovo, or to smoke with my baby sitting beside me, etc., or smoke. All of these are things that are taking years off of the lives of your children. So the only question I would have for them is, how quickly do you want to kill your children?
Kosovo actually has 10 years less of living time than European citizens.
Yeah, I mean,
is that because of this?
Yeah, and this is why this is the third area. We have 3 areas of focus. We want to work with our partners, to improve the way that government serves its people. We want to create jobs, and we would love to help Kosovars to live a little bit longer so they can enjoy their jobs and their good government services.
But how can you convince me that your climate change project, which the first time I hear about it is by reading your material, not necessarily that's a real life project. Convince me that this is not just a piece of paper that you're putting out there because it looks good. Is it really a real project UNDP is doing on climate change in Kosovo?
Look, let me tell you a little bit what we've done, but what we want to do, because I think we have to do a lot more. So again, what's interesting is that we in the international community, we're probably the biggest complainers, which shouldn't be. I mean, you should be the biggest complainers about your environment. If you're getting sick, if you're dying, I've been to way too many, funerals since I've been to so many funerals in Kosovo, I've lost track. And these are either staff members or family members of staff members, and if that's not enough, to convince you, yeah, think about your children. But I mean, our problem is that the only You know, we work with Kosovo exactly how we work with any other place in the world as international development agencies. Now, the one exception to that rule is because of the fact that you know, the particular political situation of Kosovo. Kosovo is not a party to certain UN conventions, and we can't get access to certain pots of money that are for environmental issues. But it doesn't stop other international actors from investing more in the environment, and it doesn't stop the Kosovo authorities from investing in the environment, but they don't. You know, other priorities take precedent. And so I think that yes, we have produced a few results, and most recently last year we planted, you know, I don't know whether it was 7,000 or 8,000 seedlings in the Shari Mountains, and we can do practical things like that will slow the process of climate change, that will contribute. We've also done a lot of work in terms of promotion of very easy energy efficiency measures. And we've also helped to develop strategies. We all know in Kosovo, developing strategies don't necessarily lead to changes on the ground. What I'd rather talk about is and here on, oh, I wish I remembered her name, because she's a brilliant yoga practitioner and photographer. But what we've been doing now is we feel like we need to get at the heart. We have to hit people in the guts and then in the heart. And so this photo, for example, which is about a woman doing yoga in front of Obelisk power plant with a gas mask on. We're running a series of campaigns called Eco Kosovo, and we've had 500,000, I think, people hits, hundreds of photos, and where we want to take this further, and maybe we need a whole other conversation at some point about environment, is to say, okay, we really start to need to get people scared, a little bit more scared, a little bit more aware, and a little bit more interested in engaging on these issues.
Okay, so it's a great photo to show that you cannot, that a coal plant will kill you. She's there with a gas mask. And what is UNDP working in making sure that the 99% of reliance on coal in Kosovo, we rely on coal, you know about electricity. Are you, and we're going to build another power plant. You're saying nothing about that. So you're just publishing a nice looking photo in your report. But in the end, you're not challenging the policies which rely on coal.
Well, I think that you know, we have to, obviously, we have to work with the reality. And I'm not going to sit here and try and convince you that we can switch to you know, clean energy. But the thing that we're seeing, and you're seeing...
I'm asking you about switching to 10% or 5% to clean energy. So what are your projects where you've encouraged at least a 5% reliance on clean energy? I'm not saying switch 100%, 5.
Yeah, no, if you actually read the strategies and the action plans and you know, that we have helped the Kosovo authorities to develop, they make these sorts of limited commitments, right? But then the resources aren't put behind it. And I'm going to be very honest with you, that climate change project was you know, it didn't have the kind of resources behind it to really push this. You know, what's great about the new strategy that the World Bank is developing is that they're looking at a more balanced approach. So yes, we're going to try and get Kosovo A shut down. Yes, you know, there's still a commitment to build a third, but it would be the second in the end, because we've shut down Kosovo A, the worst one, or fix up Kosovo B. But then, yes, we and others have to invest in these clean technologies, because you're already seeing they're producing jobs. They're not just saving people's lives, and we can do it here. We can do wind, we can do solar energy.
So why aren't you working on it, just talking about it?
Because we just haven't had a critical mass of civil society.
There is a civil society fighting for renewables. You are not doing anything on this. There is no lack of civil society fighting for renewables here.
Yeah, but they need to partner, and maybe it's partly our fault as well, but yeah, I think we need to partner together, because so much of this has been protest rather than, it's been anti rather than pro, right? And so now we have to get into, like, what are we going to do about this now? If we, you know, second of all, we are looking at various sources of funding, including increasing at the municipal level the investment, because municipalities like Obelisk want, you know, they care about this, and they do have resources that are coming to them. It's almost like here, you know, basically the idea is here, you know, for municipalities like Obelisk, here, have some extra money because we're killing you. And we're working with them to see how they can invest that sort of money. Countries like Austria and Luxembourg as well have invested in this, but I think all of us need to invest more now in these clean technologies. I agree.
I've contacted some of these ministries you work with before you were coming to the interview to ask what's their experience of working with you, and they've told me that that they find UNDP's involvement crucial, and largely in off-the-record meetings they told me they find it crucial because you also subsidize the salaries of their staff, advisors, good advisors who are well educated, with which they can't do without. So you seem to subsidize the salaries through programs, different programs, salaries of advisors in ministries, parliament, and so on. Can you tell us how much money does UNDP, not how much money, how many people in Kosovo government, roughly, is UNDP directly paying salaries for?
Well, I would make a clarification. These are short. Theoretically, in principle, these are short-term advisors. Sometimes they, and the idea is to give either. There's always a direct deliverable. Oh, I'm getting jargony. There's stuff that they need to do. They have to do things. They can't just go and do whatever they want. We have a work plan and we have a specific commitment that we're going to get this law passed, or we're going to help you to get this thing done.
Yeah.
Once it goes beyond that, then we're very reluctant to continue that support because the product or the result has been achieved.
I know about this, but I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just interested to know how many people in our institutions are being supported by you.
Probably, it used to be a lot. We had something, people want to look on YouTube. There's a great film called about our partnership with KFOS called 11 Years in 11 Minutes. And it tells you the whole story about 11 years of working with a capacity development facility, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and some really, really great people. We had some duds along the way, but we had some really great people there.
Okay.
Now, probably I couldn't even get it to the, we for various reasons, as much as that there are some critical moments where we would like to support the Kosovo authorities to get something passed or a regulation designed or something like that, that program came to an end. We're very, very grateful to Norway, but they've been going through their own financial issues as well.
So today, how many people do you support in the Kosovo government, roughly? Less than 100?
You can fact check me, but no, I would say probably no more than, say, around 10 or so or something like that. Very few.
This project of yours was very prominent. You supported, as you said, hundreds of people, 11 years, 11 minutes, hundreds of people who were good people, who came back with diplomas from abroad.
Often from the diaspora,
from diaspora, they got paid. But in the end of the day, through their, what you're calling work plan, did they actually push things to happen? Or Kosovo, the great people got paid and Kosovo has stagnated where it was? They actually didn't push things to get done.
Well, look, I'm not going to say, we all talk about, or at least in the sort of international community, we talk about this incredibly beautiful legal and regulatory framework that you have, one of the best in the world, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for this project. Now, that's great. Is it being implemented? That's another question, and we can have a whole other discussion about that. But basically, what I would make 2 points. One is that you wouldn't have had that if it wasn't for the CDF. I'm not saying that others didn't contribute to that. Of course they did. If we didn't have the CDF, you wouldn't have had. I mean,
what is the CDF?
Oh, Capacity Development Facility. Capacity Development Facility. Didn't have that. And a couple of years ago we celebrated 15 years here, and we just ran, we started counting all the the entities, free legal aid, mediation services, all sorts of different institutions, maybe too many institutions, God knows. We also created, I think, helped to create somewhat of a chaotic, excessively complex institutional framework, but we did that. The second thing is that as Kosovo moves toward, and I mentioned this before, we had a kind of a three-way partnership also with the Croatian, or maybe we've talked about this in earlier conversations, the Croatian experience, we brought that into the table. And so when you look at the progress reports, the EU progress reports, particularly during that very intense period when they were negotiating the stabilization and Association Agreement, the SAA. That was, that program contributed critical expertise. We wouldn't be there today signing off on this SAA if it wasn't, ironically, not just for Croatia, thanks to Croatia, but Norway, who is not even a member state of the European Union, but was our primary partner on that.
Finally, you said that you have spent 15 years working in Kosovo as a mission, UNDP.
Well, now it's since '99, so now it's come up to 18
It's much
years.
more.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that this has given the organization time for reflection, and you are the most critical, self-critical director I've met of a UN organization so far. So I know that you might actually give me the answer to what are things that UNDP will not do again, like things as a donor that you think that you've done for 15 to 17 years here in Kosovo and you will not go back to because you think they don't work. What are a few lessons learned from this work so far?
Let me give you two.
Okay, two is good.
Yeah.
Two is good.
Yeah. Built a lot of houses over the years. A lot of houses, not just us, a lot of people, a lot of people still who used to live here who got some houses. Guess what they did? They took their houses, they rented them, or they sold them, or whatever, and then they went back, right? So I think one of the things that we, not just UNDP, but others need to learn is that it's not about a house. It's not just about having a job. We talked about this before. It's about having a sense that you and your children and your children's children can build the Kosovo project. What is the Kosovo project that we are building here? What does it mean to be a Kosovar? I've spent 3.5 years here, and I don't know the answer to that story. I know what it means to be a Canadian in a very diverse society with multilingual, French and English, etc. I know what it means to be a Canadian. What does it mean to be a Kosovar? And I think that should be a principal question for any development program. Are we helping Kosovars to build a sustainable future for themselves? The second point, and we touched on this before, is please, international community, work through the Kosovar systems. Just because the local employment office is, perhaps is not the most efficient or the most strong or whatever, don't create some separate job employment project over here that's going to bypass them. Invest in these systems, invest in these people, or else you create a self-fulfilling prophecy. They will fail. If you think that they're failing, they'll fail more. The third thing, and this is especially for the young people, like I said before, I think what we would never, I've been doing, small grants programs around the world for civil society actors, and then we set the parameters, and then you become dependent on us because we've set these very specific, and this week you have to be an expert in violent extremism, and next week you have to be an expert in something else because we woke up one morning and thought we would do a small grants program or something. Please, everyone, stop doing that. Let's build sustainable networks of civil society organizations that together can really change this country for the better.
Great. Thanks very much. You've been very frank with us. Thanks. Andrew Russell from UNDP. Ishte ky Andrew Russell, përfaqësuesi I UNDP-s, gjithashtu edhe koordinatori I disa agjencioneve prej 5 tutje agjencioneve të UN që punojnë në Kosovë. Kjo ishte çka pat me thonë shefi UNDP-s Kosovë, e ju mos hezitoni me na shkru edhe me na kallëzu në kallzo.com. Deri tajtën e ardhshme, natën e mirë.